I headed to the campus office early for my mentor's documents. As I passed the field, a crowd was gathering, shouting and cheering. I glanced over another public declaration. It seemed the girl was unfamiliar, but the boy, a regular fixture here. Campus heartthrob Ethan. This month's already his third time. A sea of balloons and flowers scattered across the grass. The girl blushing shyly. Everyone around was egging him on. Clearly, she'd brought her own crew. The guy just stretched lazily, yawned widely, looking like he hadn't quite woken up. First, I paused to watch this little spectacle. Curious, even, but after seeing it so many times, the urge to stop and gawk had faded completely. Early mornings really do take their toll. Ethan rubbed his eyes, scanned the area, then locked eyes with me across the distance. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like he was trying to place a face. Once certain, he quirked one corner of his lips, then stepped forward in a single swift motion. His mouth pressed briefly against my cheek. The crowd gasped in unison. I froze, completely stunned. Wow, way too much, man. The girl still being declared to looked no less shaken than I did. His face twisted in shock, words stumbling out. You too. Ethan shrugged, his expression saying plainly, that's exactly what you saw. I was just about to speak up when he suddenly leaned in, hands clasped together, voice pleading. Just help me out, please. That kind of favor, a bit too forward. Isn't it? The girl stared, eyes wide with disbelief, cheeks flushed with embarrassment, then turned and fled. The onlookers murmured in stunned silence before slowly dispersing. Left standing frozen were I and Ethan, who seemed lost in thought. After a long pause, I finally managed to speak. Wait, what was that supposed to mean? He looked remarkably calm. What's wrong? You just rushed over and kissed me on the cheek. Don't you owe an explanation? He paused, then said, when you kissed me earlier, I didn't say anything either. I quickly covered his mouth. Where does he get off saying things like that? I didn't do it in front of everyone. Kissing you, he asked. You have a girlfriend? Why bring that up all of a sudden? I blinked in confusion. No, not at all. Then are you seeing anyone? Of course not. I nearly jumped out of my skin. He looked utterly convinced, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. So what's wrong with helping me out? It's just a kiss. Nothing we haven't done before. After being openly pursued 3 times in 1 month, even the onlookers were growing tired. The school's golden boy seemed to be losing patience too. He paced anxiously back and forth, muttering under his breath, no way. I have to come up with something. The next day, a bold new post flashed at the top of the school's forum. Ethan, there's someone I've been chasing. A younger classmate. What kind of tactic is this? Don't you care about your classmate's dignity? The replies below were a wild mix. Paris fugitive saint. Is the school's golden boy really out like that? The persistent stalker. Gotta give it to him. He's got real guts. Moderator. Fine. He was always cold. But now he's into men. I lose all hope just because of that. Moderator. Wasted a face like that. Moderator. Don't make me find out who this guy is. Once I do, I'll be on him fast. And hard. 3 posts in a row. I almost laughed at how dramatic the moderator was. But then I scrolled further, and my smile vanished, because someone had dug up my name in the comments, and they swore on their life that they'd seen me kissing Ethan right out in the open. My vision went black for a moment. After a pause, I hesitated and typed back, it was just a kiss on the cheek, wasn't it? Then I locked my phone screen without another thought. When I checked later, sure enough, several harsh replies had piled up beneath it. 2 men kissing? Disgusting, ruined my eyesight. Men liking men? Still feels off to me. Ethan had commented 30 minutes earlier, so what if I like guys? Is that illegal? No reply. He kept going. At Tangxing Pass. Speak up. At Tangxing Pass. Which department are you in? What's your name? He tagged 18 users in one go. Hey, I've already muted myself. Why are you still pressing me like this? Honestly, I don't even know how it got to this point. The situation's spiraling faster than anyone expected. Maybe this is just one of those fate-driven coincidences. Fate had me run into him on orientation day. Fate made me glance at him a few times. Couldn't help it. And fate, I guess, left me with no memory of the welcome party after a few drinks. Otherwise, how else would I explain waking up in the campus heartthrob's dorm bed? The day I found you, you were arguing with a trash can. I was worried you'd punch it clean through, so I figured I'd do the decent thing and bring you home. I shifted uncomfortably. Did I act weird when I was drunk? Not really. Just clung to me like a lifeline, calling me honey and demanding cuddles. Said you were a woodpecker, pecking my face non-stop. He tapped his cheek lightly with one finger, watching my reaction closely, probably worried I'd faint from embarrassment. Rumors said Ethan was tough to deal with, unapproachable, even. After that, I avoided him for weeks, scared he'd come after me. But when I joined student council later, I realized they'd painted him way too dark. It's just a few kisses, Ethan said casually, not even blinking. No big deal. You can do it anytime you want. He didn't blame me for the mix-up and actually made an effort to ease my nerves. The wording was a little off, but I still ended up touched in silence for longer than I should have admitted. After that, we started meeting now and then, just quick meetings or checking hallways together. He even began bringing me breakfast sometimes. When I tried to pay him back, he refused flatly, shrugging it off like it was nothing. Occasionally helped me review papers, fixed my mistakes with quiet precision. I nearly cried in gratitude, and once again, he just smiled and said, just something I did. Always just a small favor. But over time, those little things, they started sticking with me. I didn't like where this was heading. Just stepping out of the classroom door, and there he was, the man behind it all, leaning against the frame with one hand in his pocket, the other scrolling through his phone like nothing mattered. Wondered if he'd finally tracked down that bold-mouthed guy from earlier. I didn't acknowledge him and headed straight for the cafeteria. He reached out to grab my arm, but I shrugged him off. Still, he followed silently behind. Not until we'd both eaten 2 pork ribs did Ethan quietly offer me his fork as a peace gesture. Easing the tension slightly, I reminded him, you really shouldn't be throwing things like that around online. Right, he said, already shifting into his usual apologetic tone. He kept smiling as he loaded more food onto my plate. I held firm. This isn't something to joke about. Seeing me serious, his expression softened. I wasn't joking. TCH. Got it. Won't happen again. Words meant casually can land hard on the wrong ears. What if people actually start believing it? And what if I did too? Don't be mad, he said, reaching out and gently tugging my cheek until a smile broke through. I swatted his hand away, uneasy with the gesture. He didn't give up. Just kept playing nice, shoveling every last rib from his bowl into mine. Our little Jasper needs to grow strong. I gave a small huff. Don't call me that. It sounds weird. Weird? I thought you'd notice the vibe. He muttered something under his breath, too low for me to catch. He set down his chopsticks and leaned forward, hands resting on the table, watching me closely. Nothing much. I'm still waiting for you to take me to climb the ranks tonight. Speaking of climbing ranks, kind of gets under my skin. He's been the hardest player I've ever had to carry. No one else comes close. When guys want to bond fast, sharing a game is usually enough. After one meeting, I was sitting there grinding hard on my phone. He wandered over casually and asked, "What are you playing?" "League of Legends," I said without looking up. After a flawless 5-killing play, I shook my phone at him and grinned. "How cool is that?" He just said, "Whoa." The next day, he showed up with his phone open. "I downloaded the game," he said, "but I'm not great at it. Can you help me?" When it comes to gaming, that guy's definitely no pro. No problem. Ethan does well academically. He was a provincial top scorer last year. But when it comes to game skill, he's average at best. I spent 2 days guiding him step by step, and he still died the moment he hit a fountain. Pointing toward an enemy hero, he asked with genuine curiosity, "Why can that guy ride on top of others?" I patiently explained, "That's just how the character works. He shields his teammates when mounted." He nodded slowly. "So, could I ride on you too? To protect you?" Most guys avoid this role. Sometimes it's hard even to find someone who plays you Yao. I smiled warmly. "Of course you can." He nodded firmly, grinning wider than I had ever seen. I was still simmering from earlier, and hearing him bring up the game only reminded me of his clumsy play. I couldn't bear to look at him, probably sensing he'd overstepped. I fell silent, and he started fishing for conversation. "Where's your hometown?" I didn't even lift my head. "H City." "Funny, you lived there too." "For 2 years back then." He asked which neighborhood I'd grown up in, and I said the area near Hudong New Village. And just like that, he admitted he'd lived there as well. At that point, his gaze sharpened with sudden intensity. We might have even passed each other as kids. I studied him for a moment. Nothing came to mind. Still, when it came to Hudong New Village, I had something to say. There was an amusement park there once. It's gone now. The mall downtown got renovated a few years back. The city's changed a lot. Roads are repaved. Everything looks fresh. I spoke with vivid detail, but he hardly had room to jump in. He just nodded now and then, showing he was listening. At the height of my enthusiasm, I glanced at him. You remember any of this? He chewed slowly, eyes a little dull. I was too young to remember much. Seeing his interest wane, I let it go, no more forced small talk. He was ordered to delete the post immediately. At first, he refused, arguing fiercely. Love is never wrong. Love may be innocent, but come on, man, there's no real love between us. That argument just doesn't hold up. Though clearly reluctant, he eventually complied when Ethan stood firm. Ethan's move was a little underhanded, but it worked like a charm. Over the next few weeks, no girl made another bold public declaration for him. As time passed, our conversations grew fewer and quieter. Walking down the street, I no longer felt that constant gaze from strangers. Relief settled over me. Until that day outside student council headquarters, when I heard my name spoken aloud. You like Jasper? I glanced inside. Ethan spun a pen between his fingers, completely unfazed. He nodded. Yeah. The other person laughed in disbelief. Unbelievable. Iron trees don't bloom for centuries, and suddenly it flowers on a guy. Ethan said coolly, I don't care if he's male or female. He's someone I'm interested in now, and any relationship happens with me. The next day, passing by the student council office, Ethan overheard someone ask, You like Jasper? The campus heart spun a pen between his fingers, answering with calm ease. Yeah, my mind was flooded with 1,000 galloping fantasies, chaotic and unrelenting. I stood frozen in the doorway, jaw clenched tight. Just as the awkward silence thickened, Deputy President Edwin materialized from nowhere. Jasper, what are you doing out here? Playing gatekeeper. His voice carried just enough to draw the attention of the two inside. The man standing there let his gaze drift between me and Ethan, then lifted one brow with a knowing tilt. Ethan stopped spinning his pen, resting his chin on his hand as he locked eyes with me. No way, Deputy President, you're really not giving me any escape route, are you? I quickly pretended to straighten the papers in my hands, stammering out, I just got here. Really, Edwin was one of those effortlessly cool girls, white t-shirt, faded jeans, the kind who looked like she'd stepped right off a runway. Long black hair down to her waist. A single flick could leave half the room breathless. Rumor had it they'd known each other since childhood, and she lived up to her reputation as a total ice queen. She barely glanced at me, I sliding up just enough to say, Who cares when you arrived? Come in and join the meeting. I slipped inside and claimed the seat farthest from Ethan. Once inside, I chose a seat as far from Ethan as possible. But his gaze followed me like it had a magnet, making my skin prickle. Not long after, someone sat beside me, then deliberately shifted their chair closer. Tall and lean, he leaned in just enough that one leg casually draped over mine. Then he propped his chin again, tilting his head with quiet intensity. You heard what I said. The tone was firm, unmistakable. I forced a calm smile. Bro, you can go full crazy online, but no need to act it out in person. He looked like he might be angry, or something else entirely. His lips tightened, then his hands rose as if ready to squeeze my head. But in the end, he let it go. With a casual clap, he said, Good job. Who even could get under your skin? After the meeting, Edwin pulled Ethan aside to talk. As I stood up, he caught my arm. Wait. Got something to say. Something? I turned back with a smile and took off like a spring from the room. It wasn't until I was almost at my dorm that my heartbeat finally settled. For some reason, an odd feeling crept in. Ethan. He didn't seem to be pretending. Could it be he actually likes me? Wait. Why did I even add two? Better not think too much into it. Hi, classmate. Can I get your contact info? I looked up. A girl was holding out her phone, a faint blush on her cheeks. I recognized her. She was in the drill formation 2 rows ahead of me. She fumbled in her pocket, clearly uncomfortable, trying to raise her hand to ask the instructor for a moment's leave. But just as she lifted it, the boy beside her burst into laughter. His voice carried across the group, drawing glances from everyone nearby. Laughing, he pointed down at the ground. where a small medical pad had slipped from her pocket during her fumble. At that age, he should have known better than to act like this. He wasn't some fool. Someone shot him a look of quiet disdain before turning away. She stood frozen, face burning with embarrassment. I stepped forward and picked up the item, examined how it worked for a second, then gave it a firm tug, stuck right onto the boy's cheek. He blinked in surprise at my sudden move. I stared at him, saying, "Why aren't you laughing now?" His face flushed from red to purple, then, unable to save face, he swung a punch. Taking a hit without returning one wasn't an option. Retaliation was inevitable. In the end, we both got marked for disciplinary action. Seeing I didn't move, she quickly added, "Actually, I lost a dare. I just need a little help. Please." A wave of confusion passed through me. That tone so familiar. "Just help me out, please." She was sweet-faced, her voice soft and gentle. I snapped back to attention. "Sure," I said. I pulled out my phone and scanned her QR code. She glanced at me shyly, then turned and hurried away. I scratched my head, still staring in the direction she'd gone. Then I saw Ethan. He was lounging casually, waving at me. Hey, you're lucky." I instinctively turned and ran, only to trip over his foot the next second. Just before I fell, he caught me with a quick grab. "Why run?" "No idea. I just knew I had to get away. Something told me that if I stayed, things would spiral beyond my control." Turns out I wasn't wrong. He glanced where the girl had disappeared, then back at me. "So, what kind do you go for?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "Someone cute." He looked down at himself and asked, "You think I'm cute?" He always had this knack for saying the most unexpected things. A guy nearly 6 feet tall with a broad frame. Cute just didn't fit. Clarified, "I meant a cute girl." He smirked. "Gotta be that strict about gender?" I didn't know how to respond. After a long pause, he leaned in, then went into full show-off mode. "I've got abs." 8. And then the chest muscles. "It moves." Each word he spoke deepened the shadow in his gaze. My throat went dry, and I broke the silence. "Two men can't be together," he countered firmly. "Why not? You're a man, I'm a man. What are the odds of that happening by chance? It's fate. I'm 188. You're 180.8. Even our heights match perfectly. How lucky is that?" I leaned against the railing, with no room to retreat, as he closed in, close enough that breaths seemed to blur together. He made a strange kind of sense. For a moment, I couldn't find words to argue back. Was this a real confession? Should I say yes? Could I really live with the consequences if I did? Just as the tension reached its peak, James arrived, just in time to pull back the moment. "Can't you see me at all?" She waved both hands frantically in front of me. I jolted back, voice cracking. "Whoa, sister. Where'd you come from?" She gave the bag in her hand a little shake. "Brought you something. Mom said you might starve at school." I glanced sheepishly at Ethan, who had already straightened up silently, but his gaze stayed intense, his tone unusually serious. "Jasper, think it over, okay?" He turned and walked away. I watched his back fade into the hallway, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. They say spring brings sleepiness. Autumn makes you listless. Maybe that's why lately I felt so dull, like nothing stirs me anymore. The vice president was still the same cool, no-nonsense girl she'd always been. "Jasper, you're zoning out again." She slammed a file down on the desk, sharp as a wake-up call. Someone nudged my arm. "Student council's organizing a camp trip next month. You in?" "Yeah, November. My dad and mom are away on vacation. Told me not to come back with James." Such a sweet family moment. So warm, so loving. They didn't even think about including us too. Someone asked, "What about Ethan? Should we check with him?" The vice president kept arranging things, glancing briefly in my direction. "No need, he's definitely going." It had been half a month since I'd seen him after that chance encounter downstairs in the dormitory. Rumor has it he's in a neighboring province for a competition. Good, that'll keep him out of sight and mind. But when I'm alone, I can't help but remember how close his face got that day, and that line from his post. "What's wrong with liking men? Is it illegal?" Right, it's not. So I shake my head to clear it. Can't go there. Repeat it 1,000 times a day. I'm straight. Jasper, a classmate gave me 2 movie tickets. Want to catch one tonight? Elizabeth, the girl who asked for my contact info. She's sweet looking, and her name suits her. Ever since we connected, she's reached out now and then, sharing tips about a hidden dessert spot off campus, little tricks for online friendships, or just venting about how she and her roommate don't agree on which cafeteria to eat at. I stare blankly at my phone screen. Jasper, you're zoning out again. Edwin comes back from grabbing lunch with another club member and tosses me a tray. I text Elizabeth back. Sorry, I've got something tonight. It's not exactly a lie. I do have to go back and tally up all the camp registration info Edwin asked for. Speaking of organizing data, now that reminds me. Vice President, would it be an issue if we had one more person on the camping trip? Edwin glanced up from his phone, still typing something, then gave me a brief look. One more? Yeah, my sister. She's in her 3rd year at the school next door. She's staying here during the holiday too. Heard we're going camping, and she'd like to join. Edwin didn't answer right away. He kept tapping on his screen. The vice president was never easy to please, and my sister wasn't even from our school. Probably not going to happen. If it's a hassle, I'll let her know. But then he paused, almost as if something clicked. 3rd year at the neighboring campus? He repeated my name softly under his breath. Jasper. What's your sister's name? James. For no reason, he suddenly smiled. Fine then, let her come. Most of the participants were already on campus, so gathering the info was straightforward, except Ethan. I paced back and forth in the classroom, phone in hand. 10:30 finally came. Then his message arrived. Just got back from competition. Miss me. I nearly dropped the phone, heart leaping. Edwin was such a pain. Why'd he have to make me sort through all this nonsense? After hesitating, I typed, "Everything go okay," then deleted it. Instead, I sent a flat, professional reply, "I'm compiling the data. Could you provide an emergency contact?" It took him half a minute to reply, "Is that all?" Yeah, he sent over the information. Moments later, another message appeared, "I'm heading back tomorrow." Oh, who asked you? The next day was Saturday. Normally, I'd have stayed in the dorm, sleeping until I woke naturally. At 9 o'clock, the phone rang like a fire alarm. I jolted awake, disoriented. Then it hit me. Ethan had said he was coming back today. I grabbed my phone and looked. No, it wasn't him. Elizabeth. I rushed downstairs, scrubbing my face in haste. She was standing exactly where she'd asked for my contact info before, the aftereffects of forced boot up still lingering. I rubbed my heavy eyes and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you. Is everything okay?" "What's wrong?" She hesitated, her foot tapping lightly against the floor. After a long pause, she finally brought her hand from behind her back. A bouquet of flowers, neatly wrapped. "Beautiful. I actually made this yesterday," she said, voice soft. "I wanted to give it to you after the movie. But you didn't show up. You're asking me to confess? That's kind of sudden." She handed him the bouquet. "I've liked you since that time in boot camp when you helped me. But..." Her voice trailed off. Then she asked softly, "Would you be willing to accept this?" Her eyes were wide with quiet hope, waiting for a clear answer. But it hit me so fast. I froze for a moment. She seemed exactly like the kind of person I'd always imagined looking for. Playful yet confident. Each little thing about her drew you in. But why wasn't my heart racing at all? Guess it really isn't meant to be. I carefully chose my words. "You're really sweet, and you're wonderful." She tilted her head slightly. "But there's a but." "Huh? Yeah, there is. I might just not feel that way about you." Her expression softened, just slightly, and dimmed. I tried to form comforting words, but in the end, I let them go. Better not say too much and make it worse. The more you explain, the more awkward it gets. After a long pause, she nodded slowly, almost like she'd expected it. "So, you're into guys?" Her voice was quiet, not loud at all, and the morning air around the dorm entrance was still empty. Still, I glanced around instinctively, just in case. "No, not me. Definitely not." Despite his denial, she smiled knowingly. "So that's it." I didn't understand why she'd assumed that, and hurried to clarify. "I don't like guys. I really don't. And besides, 2 men together, it's just strange and, well, kind of off-putting." The words sounded a bit forced, but that was how I felt. She laughed softly. A warm, sweet sound. "Why do you say that? Does it really matter so much whether they're men or women?" if two people truly care for each other? For the first time, someone had said something like that. As long as there was mutual affection, gender didn't matter at all. In that moment, she seemed to glow. Honestly, I heard rumors about you and Ethan Sr., but I really like you, and I didn't want to regret not trying. She held out the flower again. Still, take it. Wishing you happiness. I thought, if only I'd met her a little sooner, maybe I wouldn't have wasted years in confusion. But then another line of hers caught my attention. Rumors about me and Ethan? Had that story really blown up this much? I glanced at my watch, almost 10. Midday meeting in the conference room soon. Edwin's probably bored out of his mind, holding 8 meetings a day. No point going back to sleep. I might as well grab something quick at the cafeteria and crash through the next meeting. Something about Elizabeth's words had set my nerves on edge. More than usual. I kept my hat low, hurried down the hallway with quick, quiet steps. Then I spotted Ethan the moment I stepped into the cafeteria. No use fighting it, he was always the kind of guy who belonged at center stage. He and Edwin sat across from each other, barely touching their meals. Didn't know what they were talking about. Just occasional glances, brief replies, a frown now and then. My pace slowed instinctively, shoulders hunched as I slid along the wall toward the back. Don't see me. Don't see me, I muttered under my breath. The cafeteria worker glanced over, then subtly shifted her tray, shielding it with a practiced move. Not you too. Just as I was about to slip past them, Edwin's voice cut through the air. You knew Jasper before? Only been gone a few weeks. He looked a bit darker, maybe from time abroad. A large backpack sat beside him. Clearly just arrived, not even back to the dorm yet, wearing that signature baseball cap, his expression flat, drained. He leaned back in his chair, glancing at his phone, then offered a dry reply. We dated. Wow, so much for rumors flying without proof. I'd never even been close to a girl, let alone someone like that. How could you just announce something like this? And come on, dude. It's broad daylight. Do you really have to broadcast everything so openly? And dude, in broad daylight, really? You're out here coming out everywhere? I froze in place, jaw dropping. Edwin didn't miss a beat. She was still talking. Calm tone. When exactly? Ethan's lips moved silently. When I wore the little genius smartwatch. Suddenly, I didn't feel hungry at all. I decided to head back to my dorm for a nap. Lying on the bed, tossing and turning for half an hour, my phone buzzed. Ethan, frowny face, you awake? I ignored it, pretending not to see. Another 30 minutes passed. Ethan, frowny face, still asleep. I kept playing dead. 10 minutes later, someone knocked on the dorm door. I jumped at the sound. Jasper. Open up. Ethan stood outside with his backpack slung over one shoulder, exhaustion etched into his face. He leaned against the doorframe, loose and unsteady. Worried you hadn't gotten up? I sat in the dining hall for a bit before coming. I knew, he murmured as he rested his head lightly on my shoulder. So tired. Just need to rest against you for a sec, okay? I hesitated, then reached out, my hand trembling slightly before pulling back. Sure, I guess. Have you thought about it at all these past 2 weeks? His breath brushed against my ear, a slight nasal tone making it feel oddly strained. Thought about what? I asked. Me. He propped himself up to look at me. He always went straight for the point, no games, no filters. Those sharp eyes held mine too long, pulling me in deeper than I meant to go. I looked away. I'm kind of boring and not very good at reading people. There's nothing about me worth noticing. My voice trailed off. And besides, I don't really like men anymore. He zeroed in on the key part. You used to? I fidgeted with my fingers, unsure how to answer. I can see you don't feel anything for that girl. These past few weeks, I gave you time, enough space to think. Are you really going to keep lying to yourself? His gaze dimmed slowly. Jasper, do you really not remember me at all anymore? When I was a kid, my mom took me to see a fortune teller. The man pounded his chest and swore. This child is destined for wealth. Life will be easy, plenty of comfort. She'll marry a fine husband. My mom held me close, shocked. My Jasper's a boy, so what if he is? For years, I've carried the master's words close to heart, determined to find a good husband. First, my mother would gently urge me, you're meant to be with a girl someday. I blinked up at her, wide-eyed and innocent. Can a girl really be my husband? She bit her lip, then fell silent. From elementary school onward, I began scouting for the right man. My first husband was the older brother from next door. He moved in when I was 6, living with his grandmother. Rumor had it his parents worked far away and had temporarily entrusted him to her care. Why he came didn't matter. What did matter was how strikingly handsome the young man was. I'd always been lively, with a clear complexion, and the whole neighborhood's uncles, aunts, and elders adored me. On his very first day, I warmly pulled him out to play, introduced him to my circle of friends. He wasn't talkative, probably just shy in a new place, but that was fine. Real connection takes time. Over the course of a week, I'd become his closest friend. Half a year later, we were close enough to sleep in the same bed. Even when I had an accident at night and cried out, he would hold me gently until I calmed down. He seemed to fulfill every dream I'd ever had about a good husband. So one day, when the house was empty, I quietly led him to our family shrine. I remembered my mother once saying that she'd knelt there when marrying my father. I mimicked the ritual, secretly pledging myself to my older brother in a private vow. After bowing, I took his hand and said with firm resolve, "Now you're officially my husband." He looked puzzled but nodded along seriously anyway. "So, what should I call you?" "Of course, wife," he dutifully replied. "Wife." My face lit up with joy. The laughter was too loud. I'd drawn my mother's attention. I enthusiastically introduced her. "Mom, this is my husband, your daughter-in-law." My mother's face turned a stormy shade of red. She stormed out to grab the broom, but that wasn't the worst beating I'd ever gotten. Our fate was fated to drift apart. He stayed with us for over a year before his mother came to take him home. The day he left, I cried harder than I ever had, clutching at his sleeve, refusing to let go. "Husband, you promise you'll come back for me?" He nodded with solemn seriousness. Then he pulled off his small smartwatch and handed it to me, said it was a token of our promise. I was so moved, tears streaming down my face. My mother and his mother exchanged glances. Then she reached behind her back and pulled out a feather duster. Her voice boomed louder than William's old tractor. "You little rascal. What did you just call him?" "Honey, wow." I ran through the streets like a startled deer, still glancing back to remind him, "Don't forget, you're coming to pick me up." That day, my mom gave me such a beating, my backside stayed swollen for weeks. She brandished the broom handle like a threat. Next time I called any boy honey, she'd make sure my behind bloomed. No need to remind me. I had no intention of ever doing it again. After he left, I nursed my bruises and felt a quiet ache in my chest. I missed him today. I missed him tomorrow. It took nearly 6 weeks before I dared to get close to someone new. Only fear of my mom's authority kept me from calling another boy honey. Even after middle school started, I still wasn't interested in hanging out with girls. My mom seemed to accept it. Somehow, one evening, she sighed to my dad. Finding a boy might not be such a bad thing. I nearly burst into laughter. That was the age when hormones ran wild. My closest friends would often whisper about girls behind closed doors. We'd sneak in discussions, wondering what kinds of people we liked. When asked, I said without hesitation, "I like boys." The room fell silent. Then their faces shifted into something unreadable. My closest friend leaned slightly away, voice flat. "You like guys? 2 boys together. That's just gross." Gross? I'd felt the same way when I first smelled stinky tofu. Only now it wasn't food. It was me, the girl who hung around the class, bullying a smart but poor student. When I saw that, I felt sick to my stomach. When the principal's backdoor handling of scholarships was exposed, I felt ill. Growing up, my mother had struck me countless times. Never once did she say 2 guys together were disgusting. This was the first time I'd ever heard such words. They started with casual questions. When I stayed silent, my face darkened, the atmosphere thickened. "Wait, man, you actually like guys? Then I'll have to walk a wide circle around you from now on." I noticed the guy sitting farthest away glance sideways and roll his eyes. Their expressions all looked tense, uneasy. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I like it. Call me Dad." He seemed to relax instantly and lunged forward with a grin. "You're asking for it." After that, I never brought up liking boys again. In high school, I made sure to spend as much time around girls as possible. I began to believe girls were truly the most wonderful creatures on earth. My front row seat was taken by 2 girls who stuck together constantly, holding hands while getting food, going to the restroom side by side. They'd often hug each other, sometimes even pressing a kiss on their cheeks and whispering, "I love you most." Then they'd turn to me with bright eyes. "Jasper, do you love your seatmate?" My seatmate was John. He wore thick black-rimmed glasses back then. When he heard the voice, he bit down on his pen and looked at me. I waved my hand quickly. "I don't like guys." Two girls were laughing uncontrollably, and John just stared at me with a confused expression. For weeks afterward, he genuinely believed I disliked him. It wasn't until we both went to university that things finally began to change. I often wondered if I could just fall for a girl, would that make me normal? Finding someone sweet and kind became my quiet goal, almost like a promise to myself. I didn't want to feel this way about boys anymore. Didn't want to be called disgusting. That night, I went straight to my mom and said, "I want to have a girlfriend." My mom blinked. I held my ground. "I just want to be with someone kind, someone I care about." She grabbed a broom. "High school is too important for you to waste time on romance." And she didn't budge. Of course, she'd long stopped reacting to my questions about who I liked, boy or girl. But I couldn't forget the words people had thrown at me. How they called being gay disgusting, and how their eyes had narrowed in judgment. Then I met Elizabeth. She told me, "It doesn't matter who you like, as long as it feels right." If only I'd known her when I was younger. Before that moment, I truly hadn't remembered Ethan at all. After all, I couldn't even recall his name. Just the habit of chasing after him every day, calling out, "Honey," like a little kid. It wasn't until he brought up that old smartwatch phone that it hit me he was the one. I suddenly remembered. Yes, it was him. Ethan's right. No matter how hard I try, I just can't feel anything for girls. But with him, I've tried to resist, to keep my distance. Yet it does nothing. Every time we get close, my heartbeat quickens without warning. His feelings are laid bare, impossible to ignore. Even James, who's usually oblivious, knew something was familiar the moment he saw him. And me, after all that time together, I never once connected him to the boy from my childhood. He'd even mentioned it himself. He'd lived in H-City for 2 years, and what was I doing at the time? Talking to him about urban planning, road layouts, trivial things. Ethan's face drew steadily closer. "Jasper, you really don't remember me?" My voice came out thinner than a mosquito's buzz. "I do." He didn't call me out on it. Just tossed his backpack onto my bed and held out his hand. "Hug." "What, just a hug?" "Celebrating. Long time no see." His mood had lifted noticeably, his tone light and easy. "Jasper, you're not half as cute now as you were back then. I remember when you'd chase me just to get one sucker. Called me old." Wait. Go any further and it's downright rude." I quickly spoke up. "When did you figure out who I was?" "The first day of school." "The first day of school?" I paused, trying to recall. Back then, I'd been surrounded by a few upper-class women during orientation. "Which department is your major? How old are you this year? Do you prefer sour or spicy food?" The sister's warmth made me uneasy. Meanwhile, the check-in counter next door was anything but lively. John stood at the table, facing a senior who kept his head down, exchanging only brief replies with minimal conversation. A few of the sisters whispered nearby, "The campus heartthrob. He's usually hidden away. What's he doing here? Probably just fulfilling a student council duty." The campus heartthrob? I glanced over in his direction. A guy in plain athletic wear, no effort in his hairstyle, wearing a baseball cap. Hunched slightly, he scribbled something on the table with a pen. No wonder he's the school heartthrob, just standing there, half his face in silhouette, and it hits you like a quiet storm. John finished signing in and shot Jasper a glance, muttering, "Still not done." The volume of his voice caught the attention of the student council president, who'd been quietly jotting notes with lowered eyes. He looked up. I hadn't even had time to pull my gaze away when our eyes locked. Yeah, that's exactly it. Cold, sharp focus from a glance like ice on glass. One sweep of his stare, and you could feel your skin go numb. "Almost there," I said to John. Then I stepped back, saying goodbye one by one to the eager seniors behind me. Turning around, I nearly walked straight into someone. Sorry. I didn't see you." I blurted out quickly. No reply. I looked up. There he was, the school heartthrob. He'd appeared out of nowhere, like a shadow that had just settled beside me. "I'm Ethan," he said abruptly, offering the introduction without warning. Not introducing the campus heartthrob, just himself. I'm Ethan.do, you remember me? Honestly, I didn't recognize you right away. He leaned into me fully, arms wrapped tight around my shoulders. Even with my back against the desk, I nearly lost my balance. His head brushed gently against my shoulder, voice low and tempting. Try it with me. You won't regret it. My heart warmed all at once. But then a long-buried question surfaced. That night at the welcome party, did I really cling to you that much? The words still didn't quite capture it. He paused, considering. When you called me husband and wanted to cuddle? No need to go into detail. Half true. I frowned. What do you mean? Which part was real? Carrying you back to the dorm was real. And the rest? He rubbed his nose. Everything else was something I dreamed up. Oh, absolutely brilliant. That's how it works, then. So I can play along too. 8-pack abs? Chest muscles that move? You swear it's true? He let go, lips tightening slightly, the thin, forced smile. Ever been hit before? Sorry. Family, this is your proof verified. I started a secret relationship with Ethan. At first, he wasn't on board. A secret romance. What even is that? It's like sneaking around. Hardly something I'd want to admit. It wasn't about what I could or couldn't show. I stammered. Still, does it really need to be public? He eventually gave in, choosing compromise instead. Fine, whatever you want. But this secret thing didn't exactly go smoothly. One day, I had a stomach issue and ran out of toilet paper. I messaged John for help. Turns out, Ethan showed up instead. I asked where John was. He looked annoyed. I sent him away, told him from now on, I'm the one handling anything for you. Like that. Dude, did your brain just explode? Why would I message you instead of John? Because the little prince doesn't get stomach troubles. Ever. He stood at the door, deadpan. Need help. Such a niche way to flirt. I slammed the door shut. Get lost. Back in my dorm. John gave me a long lecture for over half an hour. Dead serious. Jasper, I thought you were afraid of guys, but you seem pretty close to the campus heartthrob. I chose my words carefully. If we got too close and there was physical contact, would that feel weird to you? Physical contact? He paused, then stared at me like I'd lost my mind. So what? What's it to you? You're not my girlfriend. Fine, he was blunt. But there was a point. Though I tested the waters in front of John. Outside that moment I stayed cautious. Ethan went to play basketball. I slunk off to a quieter spot with a bottle of water, trying not to draw attention. Midway through the game, he came sprinting straight toward me. I casually slapped his shoulder. Bro, killer move. Ethan looked at my face. Something between disbelief and quiet concern. He drank fast. A bead of water slipped down his jawline. I reached up instinctively to wipe it. A few others on the court started calling out. Still got someone waiting for you. Ha! Ethan's got that glow again. I quickly backtracked. Come on, we're just friends. Then I glanced around in a hurry. Hands waving, whistles blowing, jokes flying. But none of the glances carried judgment. I exhaled without realizing it. After things settled between us, Ethan didn't just grab breakfast for me. He started handling all my meals. He even paid attention to balanced nutrition. When I was swamped in the lab, he'd bring meals straight to me. To avoid misunderstandings, I took it with a bow. Thanks, senior. Such a kind man, really grateful. His lips twitched, a quiet retaliation. Thanks? Not when you're calling me honey, is it? Soft but clear enough for everyone in the room to hear. Panicked, stammering. No. When did I ever? Can't even joke around anymore. But nobody reacted with shock. Just a few murmurs. Ugh, disgustingly couple Y. I glanced up and met a sea of winks and playful grins. Even when he came to sit in my class, the whole room just teased now and then. No more whispers. No disgusting or gay freaks. That went on for over half a month. One day, mid-meal, Ethan suddenly asked, have you really let go of that worry? I stirred my soup without answering. He'd known all along what I was afraid of, and he'd been quietly working to peel away that old scar. One day at a time, he reached across the table and gently took my hand. Don't be afraid. I've already faced it for you. The world's not as cruel as you think. Maybe back then, I was too young. Prejudice and silence had taken root deep, which is why it took so long to finally let go. Ethan took 99 steps toward me, and I finally found the courage to take one back. Ethan, I want to come out. Coming out didn't need a grand ceremony. Two men like us didn't care for theatrics. We just posted a photo of our interlocked fingers in both our friend groups with the same caption, "The world isn't as bad as you think." But it's not perfect either. Living honestly means following your own truth, body and soul. Eat when you're hungry, love without lies. When we packed up to leave, a small crowd was already waiting by the car. All of them from this weekend's camping trip. James was among them. Edwin waved his phone. "You finally made public what everyone already knew." I glanced at Ethan, and he held out his hand. I smiled and took it. As they say, love comes down to just 3 words. Walk together. End of main story. Bonus scene. This camping trip wasn't exactly a flawless getaway. We'd driven over an hour up into the mountains and barely had our tents set when the sky opened up. Torrential rain poured down. Edwin and James brought us umbrellas. I watched the two of them, wondering when they'd grown so close. Midnight, with wind howling and thunder crashing through the sky. I curled up inside my sleeping bag, regretting not being back in the dormitory, where I could have slept soundly. Fat raindrops hammered against the tent roof, too loud to ignore. Ethan's voice suddenly came from outside, layered over the drumming of rain on the umbrella. "Jasper, are you asleep?" I zipped open the tent flap a little. "No, what is it? Are you afraid of thunder?" "Not really." "I am." He wore only a short-sleeved shirt, no jacket, shivering violently in the cold. A man of 18-8, yet afraid of thunder? Standing there like that, it was oddly heartbreaking. Then, I hadn't finished speaking when he suddenly pulled a pillow from behind him. "All right." Then he darted inside in one swift move. Was this really how someone afraid of thunder acted? He brought a pillow but no sleeping bag, so we had to squeeze together, barely. 2 people packed in tight. Rolling over was nearly impossible. He turned me gently toward him face to face, then wrapped his arms and legs around me firmly. Now I'm not afraid anymore. I was pressed so tightly I could barely breathe. Yet strangely, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. The next morning, the rain stopped and sunshine poured through. Everyone finally felt free to let loose. Truth or dare was always a must-have game. But Ethan and I were both tied down by responsibilities. No part in the singles wild night. We'd been quietly watching shows on our own when Edwin casually mentioned James's name. "We met last year during that joint photography contest." They already knew each other? How come I'd never heard about it? Wait. Suddenly, something clicked. When I first joined the student council, I didn't know Edwin at all. But the moment I saw her, she felt familiar. Even now, I can't place where we've crossed paths. By late afternoon, most of them were sprawled out drunk. Ethan and I ended up being the only ones still sharp-minded. So we started hauling everyone back to their shelter, like moving crates. By the end, only 2 remained by the barbecue pit. I froze in shock as Edwin placed her hand on James's shoulder and pulled her slightly closer. Holy, Edwin's into women. Everyone in the student council knows that already. That's why she always seems to be drifting toward James. Definitely not innocent intentions. I snapped, "Edwin, if you so much as touch my sister again, get your hand off her now." My voice cut through the air. Ethan flinched beside me. "What's gotten into you?" Even though Edwin had already pulled back, I was still furious. I pointed at him, voice tight with outrage. She. Shameless." Ethan glanced at Edwin, then turned to me. "You might want to watch your tone around her." "Ha!" He leaned in close, low voice barely above a whisper. "She's a black belt. 6th degree in Taekwondo." That, I shrugged. "Have you ever fought her?" He said. "We've been at it since we were kids." "Can you beat her?" "About even." Always thought she was just all soft waves and quiet grace. Never realized she had that edge. But tough doesn't give her a free pass to go after my sister. Protect James. I stepped forward without hesitation, ready for a showdown. Then James lifted his head slightly, clear-eyed, not the least bit drunk. His lips moved clearly, forming the word, "Get lost." It finally hit me where I'd seen the vice president's face before, on my sister's phone wallpaper. That year, Ethan and Edwin started their internships. Ethan in his 2nd year, Edwin in his 3rd, and James had already graduated. On the day of their graduation photos, Edwin knelt on one knee and presented her with a bouquet and a dazzling ring pendant. I stood frozen in disbelief. Around me, classmates erupted like boiling water, cheers rising in waves. Ethan glanced between the scene and me. "Like it?" When your time comes, I'll do the same for you. Ha! I shoved him hard. Go away, you're so boring. Still, on my own graduation day, he did exactly that. Watching the man now on one knee before me, something clicked. Suddenly I understood why James had cried back then. Of course, all of this came later. James was overwhelmed. He'd promised to take Edwin home right after graduation. I figured, then I might as well tag along too. So there we were, me leading Ethan, James holding Edwin's hand. As the four of us stood at the doorstep, Ethan towered over everyone else. My mom noticed him first. She gave him a quick once-over, then her expression shifted slightly. This young man looks familiar. Ethan handed over a stack of gifts and bowed slightly as he introduced himself. Ma'am, I'm Ethan. My mom suddenly recognized him. Oh my. Ethan, goodness, you've grown so much. She glanced at me again, then nodded with a soft smile. The two of you really do have something special. Ethan shot me a quick sideways look. Sharp but playful. See? Even your mom recognized me right away. I shifted uncomfortably, eyes down, fingers fidgeting. Then, with quiet certainty, I introduced him properly. Mom, this is my boyfriend, your future daughter-in-law. James didn't miss a beat. He stepped forward and pulled Edwin close. Mom, this is my girlfriend, the one who'll be your son-in-law. Ethan nodded respectfully and gave Edwin a warm bow. Brother-in-law. Edwin returned the gesture with calm grace. Sister-in-law. My mom beamed, nodding repeatedly as she murmured in delight. Oh, wonderful. Just perfect. A full house. A happy family. After a brief pause, she let out a soft laugh and pulled us both into a gentle hug. My child, as long as you're happy, you're all I ever needed.